There are a lot of key games to talk about in this week's Gridiron Central Preview Edition, and the show is going to start now. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jim Allred. With me, as always, Matt Davis, the voice of high school football for 95.7 The Ridge. Fist bump, explosion. Week, what are we, number 5 coming up. Very interesting week. Region 7 AA play started last week. Region 5 AAA play started last week. Region 6A play starts this week. Rome's got a whole region schedule. A lot of key games to talk about. We start off with what could arguably be one of the biggest in Region 5 AAA this week. Adairsville traveling to Ringgold. Both teams 1-0 in the region. Both teams looking to try to secure that number 2 spot. Obviously, I'm giving Cartersville the number 1 spot. Yes, you can upset them, but you still got to beat them later in the season. Big early season game. It's at Ringgold. Matt, what do you think?
I agree with you. I think this could be the game of the week. Of course, there's a couple other games we'll talk about today that could fall into that category as well. You know, this one's a hard one for me to pick because I'm familiar with Adairsville to a pretty good degree because I've covered them the last couple of years and have seen them play and know what they have. As far as Ringgold goes, I know their reputation, but I don't specifically know what they put on the field because I don't get to see them play. You know, last year Ringgold beat Adairsville by 2 points. Adairsville's hitting the road. They're wanting to avenge that loss. I think they've got all the key components. They've got a little bit more experience under the belt in terms of the quarterback position because now Marcus Childress has got more experience going into this game, which I think really helps. I know last year he rushed for over 1,000 yards, also threw for over 1,000 yards. He's a great quarterback. He's also got a tandem of running backs behind him that can play. I think they're going to put up some really good offensive numbers in this game. And at the end of the day, I think we're going to see a game that's very similar to what you saw last year, a high-scoring game that could go down to the last seconds. I'm going with Adairsville.
You know, this is a very interesting game. Ringgold's quarterback, and his name escapes me, I apologize completely, is going to play, has already committed to play baseball for Georgia next year. He can run the ball extremely well. He can throw the ball extremely well. You look at the teams. Adairsville lost to Cass at the beginning of the season. Ringgold, Central Carrollton had to come from behind, win against them a couple of weeks ago. They both played good teams. It's at Ringgold. You know what? I'm gonna flip here. I'm gonna go with Ringgold. I was gonna go with Adairsville, but I'm gonna go with Ringgold. I think being at Ringgold, I think both teams know how important this game is. Adairsville's got a great team. Ringgold's got a great team. Hey, this would be a great game to watch. If you don't have plans, go up to Ringgold and watch this game. I'm gonna go with the Ringgold Tigers. He goes with the Adairsville Tigers. We'll see who's right next Wednesday. Moving on, Model at Armurchie. The second Region 7 AA game for both of these teams. So far, both 1-0 in the region. A county rivalry on top of that. Matt, what do you think?
We'll see, man. Last year, this game was decided by a last-second field goal by a freshman kicker, C.J. Jackson. You know, looking at the way these two teams have gone so far this season, Model has by far had the better run. Armurchie got their first win of the year last week against Murray County in a similar fashion as they did leading up to this game last year. So this one might surprise some people. I think that there are going to be a lot of people out there that feel like Model's just going to roll over Armurchie, and that may happen because I know Armurchie's had some struggles this year. But again, last year, you might have thought that, even though I didn't think we had a clear picture of that one. At that point, it was really a turning point for Model. I'm going to go with Model, but I'm not really sure how this will go. When you look at the history of this series the last several years, you know, Armurchie outscored Model prior to last year 115-18. They had a couple of shutouts in those few years. So Model is still looking for some revenge on this team. This could be an interesting game. It's our Northwest Georgia high school football game of the week on the Ridge. I'm going with Model, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was fairly close.
You know, I covered the Model's 2 game last week, and what I saw from that game is Model's offense is not quite ready for prime time. C.J. Jackson's a good kicker, but he missed an extra point and was a little wide and missed a field goal. He's a sophomore. You know, given those things, he's got great length. He's just the accuracy he's still working on that one. Armurchie, the way I look at it is Chattanooga's defense kind of shut Model's offense down last week. I think our Murchie's defense can do the same thing. The question in this one, and really, in all honesty, I think the first team to score 21 wins. I think if you can get to 21, you're going to win this game because I think both defenses are going to play well. I think that both offenses are going to struggle at times, and mistakes are always going to be a key. Model had a lot of mistakes last week, so did Chattooga. Model managed to get the win. I do believe Model's going to win this game, but I think it's going to be close, and in all possibility, it could come down to the leg of C.J. Jackson again this season. I go with Model, as does Matt. Coosa travels to play Calhoun. Calhoun has like a 43-game home winning streak. That includes playoff games. They haven't lost a region game since, 2001? I seem to always forget about that. Coosa last week lost a close one to Pepperell. I'd predicted that Coosa would beat Pepperell. I was wrong. Obviously, Pepperell fans, you can laugh at me about that. I still think Coosa's a good team, but come on, guys. It's Calhoun. Coosa's not ready for Calhoun. I'm not so sure anybody in Region 7AA is ready for Calhoun. I think Calhoun still has a lot of kinks to work out, although they blew Dade out last week. I'm going to go with the Yellow Jackets big, Matt.
I don't think picking Coosa last week, given the results of the game and how it ended up, was any laughing matter at all because Coosa had a chance there at the end. They had the ball driving towards the end of the game, took a few shots, couldn't get in the end zone, and failed to win that game, but it was competitive all the way to the end. Both teams made a lot of mistakes, as you've seen from a lot of our 7AA teams this year. It seems like all of our teams are young, still trying to find themselves. And so that game could have went either way. In this game, I don't really see it that way. I think Calhoun, even though they stumbled against Carrollton a couple of weeks ago, got beat very badly, they rebounded against Dade County, and they show that they still have the kind of offense that they need to be successful in 7AA. So I still think that even though maybe this Calhoun team is not quite what they've been the last few years, they're still up here compared to the other teams. And I hate to say that because I wish that it weren't the case because obviously being from Rome, I would like to see our teams be a little bit more competitive in terms of that, but I think that most people would admit that, and I still think it's the case. I think Calhoun's going to win this game, and quite honestly, I think they run away with it.
Gotcha. Moving on, Cedartown and Southeast Whitfield, the Bulldogs are 4-0, and of course, Cedartown fans, yes, I picked Ridgeland to beat y'all last week. Hey, guess what? I was wrong yet again. I was wrong a lot last week, and I'll be wrong a lot this season, quite possibly. This week at Southeast Whitfield, I just honestly think Cedartown's a better team in this game. I go with the Bulldogs, and I think Nick Chubb goes for 250 plus. Matt?
Southeast, they struggled against Gilmer, barely got past Gordon Central, and had a decent win over North Murray. They haven't had an extremely tough schedule. Cedartown, on the other hand, they've played some pretty decent opponents. They've shown a little bit more dimension in terms of their offense, and the key thing for me with Cedartown this year is it at least appears on the surface through the first several games that their defense has shored up a little bit going into the season, which is a major reason why they didn't make it to the playoffs last year. So I think this is a much improved Cedartown team. I think this is going to be a worse loss for Southeast Whitfield this year than it was last year, and I know that Cedartown won the game by 20 points last year. So I'm going with Cedartown.
Gotcha. Both of us believe the Bulldogs will win this week. Moving on, Chattooga at Murray County. Both teams looking for a Region 7AA win. Look, I covered Chattooga last week, and Chattooga's coach came up and said, last week during practice we didn't make any mistakes, and in the game they made a lot of them, and he said we got to figure out how to fix that. Murray County last week, they lost to our Murchie. Reading in the Dalton paper the story that was in the Rome News Tribune as well, the Murray County coach said, we didn't make any mistakes like that in practice last week. Then we get out here and make all those mistakes. You have two teams that have been practicing well that haven't been able to really put it together, on Friday. I'm going to go with Chattooga in this one, but I think it's going to be a lot I think it's going to be close. I would not be surprised for Murray County to win this game, but I will go with Indians, Matt. The Chattooga Indians.
A couple of weeks ago, I was reading a story about the Chattooga Indians, and one of the comments that Coach Livingston made about his team really resonated with me. And he made the comment that this team never gives up. They just keep on trying and trying. And so I was thinking about that a lot when I was watching them play against Model last week, because that's the game we covered as well. And it was true. They never gave up. They finally got in the end zone right at the end of the game. There wasn't enough time for them really to mount a comeback at that point. But you have to admit, for a young team, they didn't let things get in their head too much, and they just kept trying to make strides and move forward. And I think that's the important thing looking at both of these teams. They don't need to be worried about the win-loss record. Of course, you are going to be judged by the scoreboard at the end of every game. They need to be worried about, not making mistakes, improving every snap, those kinds of things. And I think Chattooga has got a good mind for that right now. I think they're a very focused team, even though they made a lot of mistakes. They're still trying to move forward. So I think for that reason, Chattooga is going to be the better team in this game.
Gotcha. After the commercial break, we're going to talk about a huge Region 6A game playing on Friday. Stick around.
Begin your future at Georgia Northwestern Technical College. We offer degrees, diplomas, and certificates in over 200 programs of study. Choose a career in business, health, industrial, or public service. With the flexibility of day, evening, and online classes at any of our 5 campus locations, getting your education at GNTC has never been more convenient. There are many financial aid options available, including student loans. Apply now. Georgia Northwestern Technical College. Your college, your town, your future.
Welcome back to the show. I talked about a big Region 6A game we're going to talk about. We're talking about it right now, Friday night at Darlington. Tryon travels to play Darlington. Tryon had been undefeated until Mount Perrin beat them last week. Darlington's only losses to AAA power Cartersville. Games at Darlington, the Region 6A opener for both teams. Both teams doing well in the power rankings. I believe Tryon is number 5 in the public school power rankings. Darlington's, I believe, 6th or 7th in the private school power rankings. Both of them doing well there. Both of them really need this win if they want to get the region title. Matt, what do you think?
Everything you just said, sets this game up to be a really, really great game. And of course, we said it a couple of weeks ago, circle that game. You're going to want to be at it. And the last couple of years, even though last year, Tryon, they really ended up having a good record. There were times of the season where you felt like, I don't know what to expect from this team.
Yeah.
They're kind of Jekyll and Hyde, and I think you got a little bit of that last week. I expected them to perform at a high level in that game, and really, when you look at the score, apparently they did not.
Yeah.
Don't expect that this week. I think they bring their A game. They're going to be ready. They've got that out of their system, and this sets up to be a really nice game. At the end of the day, I think Darlington playing at home is an advantage for them. They typically do pretty well playing at Chris Hunter Stadium. Logan Rice at quarterback, he's had the ability to take control of some games. I think he's going to find a way to do that. I think Darlington wins, but it's going to be a close game.
I think this is going to be a great game. I'm going to be there on the sidelines covering this game. I'm really excited because I think it's going to be one of the better games I've covered this year. Not to knock the other games I've covered, but I think this is going to be a very close game. When you have these types of games, you get excited about covering them. Look, I don't know who to pick in this game. I know Tryon has more size than Darlington. I know Darlington, I know their offense, I know their defense. I've watched them play. They're very opportunistic on defense. This is a very interesting game at Darlington. Darlington's fans have been really good this year. I know I've called them out in the past, but I will say this. If the fans that have shown up, that showed up from Murphy, North Carolina, show up on Friday night, that gives Darlington a home field advantage, something they haven't always had, even though they played at home. If those fans go crazy in the stands like they feel before, I give an edge to Darlington. I think it's at least worth 3 points in the grand scheme of things. I think special teams are going to play a big factor here. Darlington wins, but it's going to be close. Moving on, LFO at Gordon Central. Very, very tough year for the Warriors. We found out they got bit by the injury bug big time in the Murray County game, losing 2 key players within the first quarter. The Warriors are struggling this year. They're reeling. LFO, not a great team, but they're getting better. I'm going to go with LFO in this one. Matt?
Yeah, I don't hesitate to go with LFO. It might be a decent game when you look at the way these teams match up. They match up okay, but not for the reasons that teams would like to hear you say they match up nicely for. Both of these teams kind of struggling. LFO, single win against Heritage Catoosa. I don't believe they've won a game. So really it's kind of hard for me to figure out this game, but I'm going to go with LFO. I just think they're going to be a little bit stronger than Gordon Central in this game. Gotcha.
Whitefield Academy at Gordon Lee, another Region 6A game. And hey, Gordon Lee's undefeated right now. They had bye week last week. Yeah, the Trojans know how big this game is. This is not a team you lose to if you're going to go for a region title, and Gordon Lee is one of the top-ranked teams in the power rankings, in the public school power rankings in Class A. They know they've got to win. They want a region title to get the much better seed in the playoffs. So I'm going to go with Gordon Lee, the Trojans, in this one. Matt?
Yeah, this one is kind of tough. Gordon Lee, they reeled off a few wins to start the season. Their wins are over LFO, team that we just mentioned that was struggling, Coahuila Creek, and then Almerchi. All 3 teams have question marks beside them. I believe that even though it's spelled Whitefield, I think it's Whitfield.
Yeah, I always mispronounce it. Just leave it to me to screw things up.
I don't like correcting him. But anyway, when all 3 of those teams have started 1-3 that I just mentioned. Last year, Gordon Lee, they got them 19-14. Maybe there's a little payback in order this year, but I can't pick it that way, and this is the reason why. Gordon Lee's defense has performed pretty well this year. They're only giving up about 9 points per game. Whitfield, on the other hand, they've given up a lot of points. They're giving up on average about 29 a game. So to me, that raises some concern. So I'm going to go with Gordon Lee in this game.
Gotcha. Next game on the list, Lafayette at Gilmer. Ramblers struggling this year. Gilmer, not a bad record. I don't know if they really played that many good teams, but I'm going to go with Gilmer. I'm going to go with Gilmer in this one. Matt?
I'm going with Gilmer. You know, as you mentioned, Lafayette really struggled. Gilmer, good record, 3-1. But another one of the scenarios of how meaningful is the record given the teams that they've played. Fannin, Sonoraville, Southeast Whitfield. I don't know, but I'm still going with Gilmer.
Gotcha. One last game before we move to the next commercial. That's Pepperell at Dade County. A very interesting Region 7AA matchup here. Pepperell 1-0 in 7AA. Dade County obviously lost to Calhoun last week. They're 0-1. You know, this is a game that when you look at, really is probably the best game in 7AA this week because this is playoff potential. If Dade can knock off Pepperell, then the Wolverines put themselves in a great position to grab the number 2 spot in the region because Dade's already played Calhoun. They've already played the toughest team in the region. Yeah, they lost, but Pepperell's still got to play Calhoun. You know, it's at Dade County. Trenton is not an easy place to play. Pepperell's offense still is a work in progress. I do like their defense. Their special teams, they sing along with me, is always a concern. Again, I'm going to go like I said last week. If Pepperell can get to that 24 points, they're going to win the game. Don't ask me why I think that's a magical number, but I really think it is. I'm going to say that Pepperell's defense is going to get a couple of key turnovers, maybe a pick six, maybe return a fumble for a touchdown. We'll see. I think Pepperell wins this game. Matt, what do you think? Yeah,
Pepperell's one of those teams you mentioned work in progress. And, you know, at the very first of the season we said, you know, Pepperell may struggle out of the gate. They did. They went 0-3 like they did last year. But as the season goes on, they're going to improve. Well, I think last week we saw some signs of improvement. They tried in a lot of situations. I wasn't at the game, but I did listen to it on the radio. They tried to shoot themselves in the foot many times in that game. And, you know, they could have lost that game, you know, to Coosa with a change of a couple of plays, more or less. So Pepperell still has some concerns, but I think Dade County could perhaps have a few more concerns. They got shut out last week by Calhoun. Now, Calhoun is Calhoun, but I still think Pepperell's going to be a better team. I think they've got better numbers, they got better size. I think they're going to overwhelm Dade County, even though this game's on the road.
After the commercial break, we'll talk about and see if Rome and Ridgeland can get back on the winning track. Stick around.
Begin your future at Georgia Northwestern Technical College. We offer degrees, diplomas, and certificates in over 200 programs of study. Choose a career in business, health, industrial, or public service. With the flexibility of day, evening, and online classes at any of our 5 campus locations, getting your education at GNTC has never been more convenient. There are many financial aid options available, including student loans. Apply now. Georgia Northwestern Technical College. Your college, your town, your future.
Texas is going to beat Georgia on Saturday.
Of course, it was more interesting than I thought it was going to be.
Anyway. Welcome back to the show. I teased, do we think Ridgeland and Rome can get back on the winning track? Well, we'll talk about one of them right now. Pickens traveling to play Ridgeland last week. Ridgeland lost to Cedartown. Panthers are a very young team. They lost a lot from last year. You know, Cedartown took it to them last week. Watch for Mariakis' group to put it back together. I think Ridgeland wins this game. Matt?
I think so too. When I look at Pickens, they have 2 wins, but their wins are over Heritage and Sonoraville. Those 2 teams combined have 1 win. They're teams that are really struggling. So we've seen this scenario in a lot of the matchups this week. Ridgeland, as you mentioned, they really took it on the chin from Calhoun the first week of the season, but since then it does seem like they've made some improvements. And a part of that might be the matchups they've had since then. But nonetheless, I think Ridgeland is going to get better as the season goes on. I think this is another step in that direction. I'm going with Ridgeland.
Gotcha. We both picked the Panthers in that one. Very intriguing game in Class 5, 5A, Region 5, 5A. That's the right way to put it. Rome at New Manchester. New Manchester took the first loss of the season last week against East Paulding. That's only 1 region loss. Of course, 5, 5A is a total region schedule. Rome is currently 1-2. They had a bye week last week. You know, I covered Rome's game against Allatoona. Of course, Allatoona's not a bad team, but Allatoona was replacing 20 starters off the previous year's team. So I don't know what that says. Rome has a lot of seniors, but Rome's not there yet. And my problem with Rome is the offense seems to really be able to play really well for the first half, but the other team, the good defenses, know how to shut it down in the second half. Rome is going to have to get away from that. New Manchester's a new program, and they've only been around 2 or 3 years. great all year for them already. Rome, but I mean, both these teams are thinking playoffs. The problem is Rome really can't lose more than 2 more games and expect to get to the playoffs. Over their next 3 weeks, you've got New Manchester, then I believe it's East Paulding and North Paulding in some, form or fashion. Rome's got to win at least one of those 3 games, probably 2 of those 3 games if they want to guarantee playoffs. Rome has to win this game because they had the bye week. I'm going to go with the Wolves. I may regret this later, but I'm hoping Rome can get back on the winning track. Matt?
The pressure's on, and that the coaching staff at Rome and the players, the community, everybody is well aware of that scenario. So the thing that I worry about in these matchups when the pressure is on is having a team that was turnover prone in the game against Allatoona, and that was one of the things that kind of buried them in that game, making those same mistakes when they're playing on the road in a pressure-filled situation. That would concern me if I'm a Rome fan. But with that said, you mentioned the seniors, you mentioned some of the experience. I'm sure that having the week off and having the extra time to prepare for this game, that's some of the things that I've really addressed and tried to work on. And so I think that you're going to see some strides made by this Rome team going in this game. I'm going with Rome. I think they have more experience on the field, even playing on the road. So the Wolves, I think, will win.
Gotcha. Moving on, Sonoraville and North Murray. The Phoenix got their first win of the season last year. North Murray, not a great team, not a bad team. This is one of those coin flip games for me. I look at this and I have no good feelings either way. It's at North Murray. Originally I said Sonoraville. With it being at North Murray, you know what? Forget it. Phoenix get their second win of the year. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. I flipped a coin. It was heads. That was Phoenix. We'll go with Sonoraville in this game. Matt?
Haven't seen North Murray play this year. I did see him play at Daresville last year, and they were able to put together some pretty good offense, and that's kind of been one of the things about this team the last couple of years. Defense has not really been their thing, and the same thing I think with Sonoraville as well. I don't think either one of these teams has a very strong defense. So what I'm saying is I think this game could be a high-scoring game. It could be a sloppy game. I think it will be both of those things. At the end of the day, though, I think North Murray is going to have a little bit more on offense that we're going to see from Sonoraville, so I'm going to differ with you a little bit on this one. I'm going with North Murray.
Gotcha. We don't agree on that one. We'll see who's right Friday night. One last game to talk about. Creekside Christian at Unity. I was at Unity's drubbing by the hands of Dominion on Saturday. Toughest part of that game for Unity, other than the fact that they got beat soundly, was
what could be tougher than that?
Well, the first play of the game, they lost one of their best linemen, both offensive and defensive linemen, too. I don't know if it was a dislocated ankle or a broken ankle, but he won't be back for this game. He may not be back for the season. I'm not 100% sure on that. What I can say is that, talking to Joe Curtis after the game, he was like, I'm not so sure what's wrong with the defense. We got a lot of work to do. Unity can score offensively. Defensively, I just don't know. I don't feel good about this one for Unity. I think Creekside Christian's probably going to win. Matt?
We've talked the last several weeks about turning points in the seasons for Unity. They tend to struggle out of the gate, and then they kind of gel towards the end and do well. So we've been waiting on that game to happen. I think it happens in this game. I think that there are some issues, as you mentioned, having one of their linemen go down. They were already struggling because they lost one of their receivers. And so now that they've shifted another kid in to play quarterback, they put Anderson Krieger out at the wide receiver position, and obviously those changes must not have worked out very well. I was not at the game, but they weren't able to score very much in that game. So there's still a work in progress, but for some reason I just have a hunch in this game that this is going to be somewhat of a turning point for Unity, and so I'm going to go with Unity in this game, even though I've been burned by them the last couple of weeks. I'm still keeping the faith.
I've been burned by them too, and I'm tired of getting burned. That's the reason I went with Creekside. All righty, whole slew of games on Friday. Stick with us, PrepCentralOnline.com. We'll have live scoring updates from these games, video highlights from a couple of games, articles and photos from a whole bunch of them, and of course, stick with us for next Wednesday for the Gridiron Central Preview Show. We'll find out who was right, who was wrong on those games. For Kevin Myrick, Matt Davis, I'm Jim Allred saying we'll see you on the sidelines.